Bom dia. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a real pleasure to be here this morning, and it's not only a pleasure, it's really an honor. And first of all, I have to apologize that I'm not able to speak in Portuguese, and I hope it will work with the translation. In case I'm talking too fast or everything is not clear, please do not hesitate to interrupt me anytime. I'm here to serve you as good as I can, and please make opportunity, interrupt me, and let me know what I should probably add in my explanation. Well, as said, my name is ANDREAS ZIOLEK. I'm the managing director. Sorry? Okay, now I got last instructions, and we are ready to go right now. Just briefly, let me introduce myself. I'm ANDREAS ZIOLEK, the managing director of a company called ANDREAS in Germany. So we are a private company, and I'm here to explain you a little bit what we do in Germany in terms of microgeneration. I have prepared, together with my colleague Ignacio Bedoya, sitting here in the first row, a presentation for you which consists of 3 parts. First of all, I'd like to give you a brief idea who we are, what we do, and why I think we have something to discuss with our colleagues here in CERA. The second thing is I'd like to introduce you what's going on in Germany right now in terms of the so-called Energiewende, the energy change, energy shift. What are the targets and where we are currently? Noch näher. Okay, so I have to go closer to the micro, something like that. I hope it worked now. Okay, it looks a bit strange, I think, but okay, I do it. Remind me, please. It feels a bit difficult. Anyway, the third thing is that I like to go into an overview of what happened so far in terms of decentralized generation in Germany. And I will point a little bit out the importance of decentralized power generation in the overall energy plan. Well, let's start with an introduction to my company and to our activities. I hope you can see it here. Just briefly, ANDREAS is a SATA consulting firm working on energy efficiency and renewable energies in Germany. We are a 100% subsidiary of one of the major German certification body called TÜV Nord. And we are considered to be, let me say, an in-house consultant within this company. Our main contractors are public authorities. The key project still is a project I will inform you about later a little bit more in detail. But we're also working for municipalities, for local authorities, and give all the recommendation and consulting services in terms of how to make an efficient and a future-oriented energy supply. I will leave it like that and start with our so-called flagship project. What is the flagship project? The flagship project, and that has been the starting point for our relationship with our colleagues here in CERA, is a project called Energy Agency, or Energieagentur NRW. So what is it, an energy agency? The energy agency, particularly the energy agency in North Rhine-Westphalia, which is one of the 16 federal states in Germany, of course the biggest, of course the important, the most nicest, and whatever. The agency is considered to be the main instrument of energy policy of our government. So it's really a platform to develop and to implement the energy and climate protection policy of our government. It is an independent and a non-commercial platform. Independent means that it has nothing really to do with the government directly, but it's also not an industrial entity. It's really a neutral and non-commercial organization that people put trust in, and that's most important. The second thing is that this agency is fully financed, almost fully financed by our federal government. So we do a job on behalf of the government. As a company, we don't have own economic interest in that. The government look to us as, I call it, a state-of-the-art consultant. So they expect us to be the guys to tell them how they should facilitate their policy. They put a goal. For example, I'll let you know in a minute, CO2 reduction, 80% by 2050. They don't care how to do it. They ask us how to do it. And we do develop the plans. In order to do so, we have 120 people working with us. Most of them are technicians, engineers, and scientists. And we do develop technical plans, strategies for our government. And of course, the government still decides, but we prepare the mechanism. This project, as said, is managed by private entities, and one of them is my company, Energy Engineers. And the whole work is based on a long-term contract with our government. This has been recently renewed for the next 6 years. What is an energy agency doing? I prepared the slide to introduce you a little bit to that, and I put it into 4 major tasks we see. The first thing is that we run innovation clusters. What does it mean, an innovation cluster? I'd like to explain a little bit further. What we do in these innovation clusters, we steer, we operate, and we manage these clusters in order to develop new technologies and to commercialize this technology. Because we are not only there to design a new energy technology, a new energy strategy, we are also there to make sure that the economy is there and that we take advantage of the opportunities, that we apply the technology, that we make sure that our local companies are participating to this change. And that's the most important part. So economic development is a key pillar of our activities. Currently, we are working here in 8 thematic clusters. I don't like to go in detail to all of that, just to give you an idea that we cover the whole range of technologies. For example, wind power, photovoltaics, most important here in Serra as well, but we also look into the transport sector, energy efficiency, and other things. What probably is impressive for you to know is that within this activity, there are more than 3,000 companies involved. They all come to us with their specific interest, with specific ideas, and we do need their knowledge because we cannot do it on our own. But our job is to include them and to make sure that they can contribute to the overall development. We do it in different ways. We do projects, we do information campaigns, we do public awareness, a lot of these things, but to make sure that they are part of the game. Second pillar, also most important, is energy consulting. We have to inform the customers, the potential client, what are the opportunities of renewable energies? What is the opportunities of energy efficiency? And that's one of our tasks that we have to perform as well. Inform them, to motivate them, to tell them what are the advantages, because to be honest, to be frank, in the past there was a lot of hesitations, a lot of reasons why not to move to a new system. Everything is fine, why should we change? It's motivation, it's most important, but also support. It's not to force them, it's to convince them. That's what we try to be with our work, and we go to teach them, we tell the communities where opportunities are, and the same with the industry here. And the third part I would like to highlight a little bit is training services. In order to make it happen, you have to have qualified people. And it's most important to involve them as well from the beginning, to make sure that the local companies going to install the PV panels or the wind parks or whatever are capable to do that, and make sure that they are involved from the beginning. That's the first most important pillar, what we do, and that's what we exchange very much with our colleagues here in Serra and see whether that might be a right approach for them as well. Don't get me wrong, what's going to happen here in Serra will probably be different from what we do in Germany, and we cannot tell you how you should do that. We are just here to share experiences and tell you how we did it, but you are the experts and you need to make it happen. We are happy to support you when it's needed, but at the end, it's your game. I talked a lot about NRW, and I think you should probably know a little bit about my country. It's a small dot on the landscape. You may have never heard about that. It's almost nothing in comparison to Brazil. You will have hard time to imagine how many times it fit into your country. So we are very, very small, but we are powerful. And so we call ourselves the energy region #1 in Europe. I think there are a few others that do the same, but I'm sure we are the #1 for a couple of reasons. We have a lot of energy production based on fossil fuels so far, mainly coal, but this is history. There is not too much coal left anymore. And that actually is the reason why the government said, make sure that the future is ready for us, that we can take advantage of the opportunities we have. And that was a time when the Energy Agency was set up and where we started to work in renewable energies as well. So I put a couple of figures here. I don't like to go to all that in detail. Probably a figure 1/3 of the German power generation is taking place in the small red area in Germany. 80 million people living there. Most important, probably, it's still a highly industrialized area. The GDP of 560 billion is more than the Netherlands, it's more than Australia. It's really a powerful area with a lot of energy consumption. And you may think, oh, these guys want to do it with renewables? They must be crazy. But I try to convince you that we are not crazy, that we know exactly what we do. Yeah. Okay, talk a lot about my company, talk a lot about the background. Let's see what Germany intends to do, what the targets are, what the plans are. The German policy addresses 3 areas. The first one is energy resources or energy sources. We would like to become, as much as possible, independent from foreign resources. One of the key reasons why Germany is going for such a high amount of renewable is we highly depend on foreign sources. And that's not a very convenient situation. If you may know that we have now a big conflict ongoing in Europe again between Russia and Ukraine, and Mr. Putin has a very powerful tool, which is the gas supply to Western Europe. We don't like it. We don't like to depend on these resources, and we like to become independent here. That's one of the key drivers. The second one, of course, is budget. 90 billion euros every year just to buy crude oil and natural gas. At the end, you burn it. Is that a smart idea? I don't think so. We can probably use it a little bit better. So that's what we intend to do, actually. Second thing is infrastructure, of course. I will let you know a little bit more in detail later on. Infrastructure is most important for our plants. But at the end, the second part is, of course, consumers, because before you serve a building, for example, with renewable energies, make sure that it is an efficient building. Make sure that you don't need a lot of energy. Make sure that you avoid a powerful air condition by a little bit of insulation. That is the thing we have to do, and there is customer perspective most important as well. A lot of figures here, just briefly a few most important parts from my point of view. It's mainly here what we intend to do in energy efficiency, reduce the energy consumption by 50%, reduce the electricity consumption, focusing on building, because buildings in Germany is the most important part for energy consumption. But at the same time, we have set very ambitious targets for the power generation. 80% renewable power by 2050 in the power sector. Total energy 60% from renewables. That's ambitious targets. That's a policy. So you think it's realistic? How this is going to work? That's where we are. 2013, we already had 26% of renewable power generation in Germany. You see that there is a slow but still continuously growing demand in Germany, but it's ramping up, it's coming up. And there are reasons behind that. So we are far away from our objective. We have not yet reached the 80%, but I'm pretty optimistic that we have a fair chance to get there. Let us talk a little bit about the challenges. And this is a figure you may have seen many, many times, and I don't like to explain it also in detail, but this is the usual system. The dark color here, that's the fossil power generation. So what you do today is, in Germany, you produce power when it's needed. There is always a balance between demand and power generation. You have the systems here. If you need more power, you put in additional power plants. If you have less power demand, you shut them down. That's the usual game. And you see a very few green and red areas. This is today the situation where we have a surplus of renewable energies. And renewable energies don't follow the rules. They are there when the wind is blowing, when the sun is shining. And believe me, it's a little bit different in Germany than here in Sierra. We don't have these wonderful conditions you have. So we really depend very much on the climate conditions. And that's still a challenge for us. So the system works like that. You see it on the right-hand side. We have 3 levels of power generation, and usually the dots here These are the power plants. They feed in the power, and the power is distributed to the consumers. That's how it works today. It's not a big deal. It's, I think, almost the same around the globe. This system works very fine. It's very stable. It's very robust. It's, if you like to call it, very efficient. But it's not prepared for the future. Why not? This looks a little bit more colorful, and it looks, of course, a little bit more complex. And the reason for that is that if you go for such a high share of renewable, and please look on the number here, it's 2050. The power generation in Germany may look like that. A lot of renewable power. The green one is power generation from wind. The yellow one is from photovoltaics. And this is what remains to be done on fossil basis. So the red line is the demand. And what are the challenges right now? The challenges is that we do have gaps. We have times where we have not enough renewable power to serve the power demand. But on the other hand, we have a lot of areas and a lot of energy surplus. And we in Germany have to store it in order to get to this 80% level. So energy storage is a big, big issue. And the system that is probably able to do that will look like that. A little bit complex. Still some power generation here. The green ones is now big wind parks. In Germany, it's mainly offshore wind parks. We have some difficulties here, but it's still the plan to go for offshore wind parks. And we have a lot of power generation here, and the low voltage level on a decentralized level. And that is challenging the system. We do have to design a new energy system. And the decentralized power generation will become the backbone of the energy change. A lot of things to tell you, and in order to, because of time, I cannot go into all the details. I will leave it like that, just to get you an idea. The new system, it's more complex. The new system is very much decentralized, and decentralized power generation is one of the key technologies to make it happen. When I talk about decentralized power generation, what does it mean? It's mainly the three of ones. I like to go a little bit more in detail today. It's photovoltaics, wind power, and the so-called combined heat and power generation. We will look a little bit into the details what have been achieved here in Germany. But once again, let me stress, if we go for renewable energies, and if you want to make a business case out of renewable energies to make sure that the local economy take advantage of that, it is a decentralized story. It's not a centralized system anymore. We have new partners on board, you have new actors on board, and you have to involve new partners. That's the challenge we're facing right now in Germany as well. Okay, let's look what it means, decentralized power generation. Let's start with photovoltaic. You see a figure, I hope you can see it. You see the distribution in Germany. It's, I would say, clear that in the south of Germany, where we have a little bit better condition, there is a focus of the photovoltaic industry. You see the figures here. You may laugh when you see these figures and look into the conditions here in Serra. I know that Elias has been to Germany, and he said, well, I have never seen the sun in Germany. But trust me, there is sun sometimes. Yeah. And yeah, so that's what we get out of the power. And I said, I will agree with that. In the south of Germany, we do have pretty good conditions, but also in the northern part, and this is also in Westphalia again, a lot of PV is already installed. And let's look into the figures. That's the current state, end of 2013. In Germany, we have almost 36 megawatt of photovoltaic installed. 36 megawatt. That's a number, I would say. Yeah. The power generation, almost 30 gigawatt. 1.4 million units. 1.4 million PV units installed in Germany. What is the message? The message is the average power is 25 kV. It's not the big thing. It's very much small PV units installed on the roof of the buildings. Many, many decentralized power generators. The figure is completely different here in Brazil. But in Germany, it is very much a figure like that. And the systems, the power generation, is mainly owned by private persons. It's private money that make it happen. If you look to the development here, you see that we had really a ramp up between 2008 and 2010. why people don't find money on the street. There must be a reason why it happened. And the explanation here is, from my understanding, two things I try to explain with the next few slides. The first, the decrease of costs. You see here that the cost of PV has significantly decreased for two reasons mainly. One is, of course, economy of scale. A lot of installations, a lot of demand creates a market, creates competition. But the second thing is that, particularly in Germany, the German PV industry was leading the game for a long, long time, until we teach the Chinese how to do it. And they picked up very, very smart, and now, as you know, most of the modules are coming from China. So the competition there reduced significantly the PV cost. So then the cost for PV goes down, and it becomes an interesting model for the people. But this is only one part. The second part is, this is a sketch, a figure of the feed-in tariff. If you produce power with your PV panel in Germany, you get paid for it in case you feed it into the grid. And the feed-in tariff is fixed by the government, and you see it at that time that we still had a very high subsidy for PVs. It decreased significantly over the time, but at that time, when the ramp-up came up, it was still very attractive, and it was a very interesting business case for private people. And they took action and bought all the PV panel. So if you have an opportunity, you drove around in Germany, you will see a lot of PVs on private houses. And that's basically the 36 gigawatt I'm talking about. What happened, I come back to it in a minute later. We reduced the subsidies in Germany, a big debate ongoing still on that. Now it's still attractive, but it's not that attractive anymore. But still, as you see in the figure, let's go back. Now is that one. Still new systems are built, but not that amount than in the last years. Okay, a little bit on wind energy. The same procedure here. You see what happened in wind energy, and again, the conditions are not the same like here in Serra, but still a lot happened in Germany. The distribution is pretty equal. Of course, the parts, the northern parts connected to the coast, they have some advantages, but also countries like North Rhine-Westphalia, which do not have a coastline, are very active in wind generation. Yeah? A lot of installations here as well. That's the status. We do have currently also in wind power 34 gigawatt of wind power units installed. Almost the same like PV. It's roughly the same figure here, but much less units, around 24,000. And again, much smaller than the big wind parks here in Brazil. It's a lot of single installations. The average power you can see is 1.4 megawatt. And again, a lot of these systems are financed, are owned by private persons. They build some, let me say, somehow a community. They put money together and buy together a wind park and create a business case out of that. But it's, again, a very decentralized story. If you look into the installations briefly, and that's a lesson learned from Germany right now, this is a capacity. And you see that we have a lot of PV followed by onshore wind. If you look to the generation, it's a completely opposite. A lot of installation of PV, but unfortunately not that much of energy. And that's something I'll explain later on in terms of cost. We probably have to rethink if we can really subsidize PV in that way as we did in the past. Big debate now in Germany, even if we have achieved a lot, and I think we cannot really change the system, but what you see every day in the newspapers, oh, the costs are increasing, the energy costs are increasing. Poor people cannot pay for power anymore. And who is guilty? Of course, the renewables. The renewables are the problem, but the energy costs are going up. That's a nice marketing campaign of the fossil industry, but it's not the truth. And if you look into the figures, I tell you why. This is the so-called renewable energy surcharge you have to pay. Every German household or every German power consumer is obliged to pay that budget, with a few exceptions, and one exception is industry. Industry has not to pay it, so the private people have to pay the bill at the end, and that's a big debate ongoing right now. So you see on the figures here, I hope you can read it, how the system works and how the the surcharge, which is currently 6 euro cents roughly, is composed. This blue one, that is the money we really put into renewables. The other things here, two other big pillars. One is the subsidies of industry. So we support industry that they do not need to pay that surcharge. And the other thing is that we have to subsidize the market, because as there is a lot of low-cost energy available on the stock market, the prices are significantly increasing. And they really subsidize the energy prices, and therefore a certain budget is allocated there. So imagine if we would not do these two things, and we would be a little better in administration, the surcharge would be much, much less. So it's not fair to blame only the renewables for the high energy costs in Germany. One other message here is, if you look to the system where the subsidies are going to, a lot of that money is going into PV. And that probably needs to be changed, because if we want to make it efficient, we have to rethink if we can really put such a lot of money into the PV system. I don't blame it. I think it's good that we have it, but we have to consider if we can continue like that. Last part, I hope I'm okay with time, and stop me if I'm talking too long. It's the micro CHP. What is micro CHP? It's a combined heat and power generation, a third most important pillar of decentralized energy in Germany. And this really ranges from very small units people install in their house, maybe 1 kilowatt of power there to produce heat and power in their home, and there's also subsidies for that. But it could also be a big power plant, 600 megawatt or even bigger, which is also doing CHP, a broad range of technology. And also here we achieved a lot. Now a 13 gigawatt of these systems has been installed, and 52,000 units. And also here, again, it's becoming a very, very decentralized story, because the growth of the system, I will tell you in a minute, is in the small systems. One important point I would like to mention again on that slide is the last column here, that most of the systems, 50,000, are connected to the low voltage grid. So they are supporting the energy balance in the low voltage grid. It's to stabilize the energy system, and that's most important as well. That's why we are very much interested to increase the use of power generation. Because, just to explain briefly, a lot of PV is feeding into the low voltage grid, which is local grid at 400 volts. There is almost no opportunities to balance the grid. So you need to find something to stabilize it. Storage might be an opportunity, upgrade the grid, but also this power generation, because you can manage a lot of this small system in a smart system as the entire power generation, and it helps to balance the grid. That's why we are so interested in this technology. Just a small figure to conclude here as well. You see two messages here. On the one hand side, you see the number of installation and continuous growth here as well. And the lines is the power. And of course, very few big stations account for the majority of power generation capacity, and a large number of systems only contributes very little, but at the right location and at the right voltage. That's most important. Average power here also 250 kilowatts. Sorry, very small units, but very helpful to redesign the system. Two final slides from my side. I called it, who is paying for the German Energiewende? Who is paying the bill? I mentioned that already. This is probably an interesting slide. More than 1/3 of the systems are owned by private people or by groups of people financing the energy system. And that's also new, because it has never happened before, that private people own their own power generation. That's a new development for us. Okay, that's the final figure to explain how the figures looks like in Germany. The average price currently in Germany for a household is 30 euro cents. I think, which is probably roughly 1 real per kilowatt hour. It's pretty expensive, that's for sure. And that's why we have to think some optimization here. But what we see is that due to that, the energy efficiency is significantly increasing. And at the end, the energy bill for private people is not really increasing. So it really forced people to save energy. And that's also an interesting lesson we learned from that. Okay, I like to leave it like that. I hope you got an impression what we are doing in Germany. We are here to share this information, to share these experiences, and I'm very much looking forward to work with my colleagues. Thanks a lot for your attention. Thank you very much.